start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was kind of an official call to order, I think.
Yep.
Okay, I need to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Mike, second by Jean. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public comment. Do we have some public discussion?
I do. So I just wanted to give you an update on the status of our spring sports, as today was the day that we have now postponed 50 events. And so I just thought I would share how we are handling all this because in case you start hearing disgruntledness. So I'll just give you an agenda. The baseball has not played a game yet.
So we're undefeated.
Excuse me. Softball played one game, and that happened to be La Crescent called a Wednesday afternoon. We had it established by probably 1 p.m. to play that Thursday because we knew it wasn't going to snow, hoping that our field would dry up a little bit more. It didn't, but we played at the city field. So we got one game in that was not even on the schedule. Track and field had one indoor meet and one junior high meet. Otherwise, they've not had an outside varsity meet yet. Golf, they have not competed yet. I think they've been on the course of 2 days total. However, adaptive bowling's on schedule. It's going great. So what has happened? Minnesota State High School League has allowed for, because of this massive storms throughout all of Minnesota, that you can play a doubleheader 5 innings each as opposed to the 7, which will help with the baseball pitch count. They can only throw so many pitches, and then they have to take a 4-day rest. So what is happening, a lot of our games that were scheduled home in April have now been moved to just the same night in May that we play them again as a doubleheader with the 2 5 innings at that point. So it takes a little bit away from our home, but at this point the coaches are just like, let's just get it in. You know, that's our biggest worry. So conference games are getting in. The non-conference are pretty much on hold. As a result, some of our non-conference with the Three Rivers, they threw their whole schedule out and did all double headers. So then that pushed a lot of our junior high non-conference games. So right now our junior high is really getting hit badly. So I'm working out, but they won't reschedule until a varsity game is guaranteed yet because I've already rescheduled one golf meet twice, hoping that it works for next week. So we're trying to be really creative with that. And I called for the dome at RCTC. They're taking it down this weekend, so all the lights and everything are already down. There's a turf at Triton that has a softball field on the inside, so if you get massive rain, they're willing to host an entire Saturday event that possibly many schools could go and play. And playoffs start May 21st, so that's where we're at. Just so you know, I know junior high is really going to get hit, but it's getting hit. The entire Minnesota junior high is getting really pushed aside. So I'm trying not to have that happen, being creative, but it's a reality.
I know that HVL and Three Rivers both contacted Chris Johnson to redo their schedules. Has Southeast Conference contacted
We
Chris?
always use Chris Johnson.
Yeah.
Always. No, because what has happened is Three Rivers has 18 conference games because of how many people are in their conference.
Mm-hmm.
We have teams that are paired, GMLOS, GMLO.
Okay.
So we just had 12. And then with Kingsland is coming into our conference next year, so next year it'll be 14 that we would have to reschedule. So we actually are okay conference-wise. It's just mainly the pitch count and trying to make sure they have enough games that way. Currently okay. I mean, as I say that, it'll probably start raining in a week, so.
What do you have an indoor track meet?
I think they went to Hamlin, or I'm not even sure. They just went to a college, or maybe it was even Decorah. Went to it.
Was that a pre-scheduled one?
It was pre-scheduled, yeah. They usually do that at the end of March. So they did that quick, and then now. So they're really hurting because they have true team in like May, beginning of May, and so just trying to even get in.
And they don't reschedule track meets because you can't have kids running that many nights in a week.
Right, and you just really, and it's difficult, so then they're trying to throw out new ones to see if they can get 3 teams to come, you know, so
How is it even going for practice? You know?
Practice is getting really, really old, you know, for both softball, baseball, and golf. Golf has hit more balls into the net in the cafeteria than anything. Softball has done Zumba. They have tried a couple other things to just try to give it a little bit more of a go, but overall, everyone's getting sick of it, you know. Being creative has become hard.
Yeah.
Even, I know baseball went outside the Friday of that last snowstorm, not this previous one, but it was like 40 degrees and snowing. The kids were freezing, but they were outside, so I was like, get them outside. So
And track has been outside running most of the time.
Yeah.
Because they're
but
like
you know,
that.
you don't want to
The ground is
shovel.
soft.
Yeah, and you don't want to shovel the track because of the. You don't want to ruin that, so that has to melt naturally. You know, we've covered tarps on the baseball field, tried a few things, but it mainly just needs. Just when the baseball field was getting dry, then the frost started coming up and bubbling. So that's where we're at.
So
Thank you.
do we owe the city of thanks for cooperating and
We
giving us?
did a couple things that they. So last year we ended up having a game there, but their bases were too far apart.
Okay.
And so I had to get special permission to call it a Minnesota State High School League sanctioned game. So they have moved their bases in to 60 feet apart, which is fantastic. The only thing we had to adjust was the pitcher's mound, which for softball wasn't a big deal. It was just a board. So
Okay.
they were. I think they were pretty excited. You know, they didn't have a porta potty there yet, but BP was close, so it worked out. Nobody complained. So
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
It's nice to
Well,
see
thank
your
you.
cooperation.
Thank you for coming in, Lisa.
Okay. Anybody else? Consent items.
I would ask that under personnel, number 2 and number 3 be treated individually. So just pull them off the consent agenda and act on
Okay,
them separately.
okay, take number 2 and 3 off then and add it to discussion items.
Well, no, it just would be
Alright.
right after. I think the rule is they're just treated right after the
Oh, okay.
consent agenda, but they're treated one after.
Okay,
They're treated like action items.
They're treated like action items, which they are.
Mhm.
all right. So can we have a motion to approve the consent items as amended?
So move. Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. Now we'll discuss number 2 there.
C2.
So, do we put a motion on the floor to discuss, or do we discuss and then put the motion on the floor? We kind of do it backwards sometimes, so.
Technically, you're supposed to put the motion then discuss. So,
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Okay,
So I have questions on this, because it says it's at the instructor's request.
yes,
And it's listed here on the consent items as permanent contract reduction, although reading through the agreement, it doesn't sound permanent.
no, she requested that it become permanent because the agreement, the way it's written, is just for this school year, and she requested that it goes for the, if you read number 3,
Yeah, I know, but that's why I thought it was a permanent reduction, and then number 3 puts it back to not reduction. That's why I was confused. So number 3 says she's expected to return to a 1.0 teacher position, but it's listed here as permanent contract reduction.
If
on the agenda.
Hatterberg wishes to continue the 0.5 for the next school year, she must notify the school district no later than April 15th and her request that in the contract. Then we are evaluating whether that request will be honored. And if approved, Katie will have been deemed to have resigned 0.5 of her position and removed and reduced down to 0.5 for the rest of the time. And that's, so what we're doing right now is actually number 3. She's requested to
Oh.
not go back to 1.0 for the 18-19 school year. She's requested to start the 18-19 school year and all years then on at 0.5. We have done this before for Becky Wilford, requested to stay at 0.75 instead of moving back to the 1.0.
So she was hired like for 17-18 at a 1 year, but then asked to be reduced to 0.5.
Right.
So now we're saying that she will continue, but not renew it at a full year, but at 0.5 for the following year, coming again.
Right, so she
So-
wants to, as far as a tenure and seniority schedule, she wants to just have the rights to a 0.5 position. And that's her request. I talked to Angela about it. Angela said it is, she understands why she's doing it, and she would rather have Katie at a 0.5 than to not have her at all.
Are we covering our history classes now with her at 0.5 and everything?
Yes, we are.
And how full to capacity are we in the history classes? Like if next year we start bumping over that and we can't increase her contract, we'd have to,
If we wanted, we would ask her if she would be willing to increase at that, like a 0.25 for a semester, and then she would probably ask once again she would do it, and then as long as she's allowed to go back down to the 0.5 the next year.
what about any kind of precedent we're setting for other full-time FTE instructors who wish to reduce their contract to half a position? And they've seen that the board has
Well,
agreed to that.
the board has agreed to it before. We have, let's see, a kindergarten teacher that was approved at a 0.5. We have a high school English teacher that was approved at a 0.75. We have an ag instructor that has requested to only be filled to 0.25. However, she did take overage and was up to 0.75, but then asked to stay at the 0.25. She was hired originally at the 0.25. The difference is that she was hired originally at a 1.0 and then requested for this year to be at a 0.5, and then has decided that 0.5 works better in her life.
But if given the ultimatum, the union does not protect them at having rights to having a 0.5, correct? The district has the right to say, no, I'm sorry, we need you at full capacity.
Then what happens?
And that has to be agreed upon by the teacher and because she would have the right to say, no, I can only handle a 0.5.
But then does the union go to bat for her, or is she breaking the contract that she had signed earlier? I mean,
No, the contract would be for the 0.5.
If
And
we
so-
agree to this, if we approve this.
I know, but I'm saying, we're not worried about, it seems like this situation is gonna work out, there's still, the class is covered. And you're just worried about setting a precedent where if you all of a sudden decide to go to halftime, right?
Well, no, but we've, obviously, that has happened in the past, so,
And it's not something we typically like to do, because the more halftime people you have, that you're more spread out. It's better to have full-time people that given their full dose, but
yeah, there are some places that just won't entertain that, I mean.
That's what I'm saying though, we still have that power to do so. And if we looked at each individual situation and say, yes, we're able, no, we can't spare you.
Right, so, one other question would be has every teacher who has requested something like this been granted the right to be heard at the board? Or have some of the requests not made it to the board agenda?
since I have been in this position, every request has made it to the board.
Okay.
Why is it that we don't just allow for to go to halftime for this year and then reevaluate it each year.
We're allowed to for 18-19, correct?
No, this is,
But
we're
no,
being
she-
acted upon.
This is all for her though. She is getting the right, she had the right as of a few days ago to go back to go to a
And
full.
she asked before the 15th.
And she did not want to. So, but as far as if she is needed at full capacity next year, we have the right then to say, we need you at full.
No, we don't.
We
Yeah,
don't?
well, if
Yeah,
we
if
agree,
we-
if we change the agreement, if we say we're gonna approve it for this year, but we want to revisit it when we know enrollment numbers, we have the right to do that as well, right?
Correct.
But if she refuses to come back full,
She,
right.
right.
could, and then
I
we're gonna have
understand.
to buy two halftime and pay double benefits.
I understand.
Well, she is guarding herself then for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a motion on the floor, so.
Motion on the floor to,
Accept it.
accept. Any other comments?
And Angela was comfortable with this? She did not express a concern? Okay,
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Resignation.
My, motion to approve the resignation of JD.
Second,
Okay. Discussion.
My question is, her letter says that she'll be using vacation for April 23rd, 24th, and 25th, but the motion says that she's resigning effective April 25th, so I'm wondering about April 25th. Is April 25th,
That would be her last official day.
but the resignation, if you go back up, can you move back up to the top of it, Ann? I thought it said effective April 25th. What does that mean? I would think shouldn't that say effective April 26th?
No, that's, April 25th is her last day of employment.
She just happened to be on vacation.
I'm just saying, when we see something that says effective, is that effective at the end of that day or at the start of that day? That's probably my question.
When this is typed up, it's typically it's the end of that day.
It's the end of that day. That's all I needed to
Yep.
understand.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I know it was not a full 2 weeks notice, but, the
I wasn't,
opposite-
my
yeah.
question was just on understanding what this
Okay.
means, and I didn't get a chance to call you, I'm sorry.
Okay, no.
and her
that's fine.
services will be covered then through the May.
We're finding a way to do that, and, I will do the exit interview with her tomorrow, because Angela, they're knee deep in testing and Angela could not come down, so I will do her exit interview and get the keys and.
So you mentioned something about 2-week notice. So 2-week notice, is that a mandate or a courtesy?
It's a courtesy.
Of course, so, I mean,
Well,
we don't have much to do
No,
about it,
because
right?
that's, when we got it, that was what Angela and I discussed, because Angela asked if that would possibly cause a problem with the board.
I don't know how it could,
Okay.
so,
Okay.
but you mentioned it, so I.
Yep,
Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, discussion items, Lester Prairie Garage.
we talked before about, going with the Lester Prairie bid, and that was for the $41,800 for the garage out here on the side, except the request was for, it's called I'm learning so much in construction. It's called a mono-slope roof. And so this is what a mono-slope roof line would look like. That would be at the north side, and then you'd have that, it would be an offset truss. And so that, the stub nose would be facing the,
Shop?
the shop, no, the north.
North.
No,
So
oh, sorry.
that would be facing the houses. And so Kyle Kaler, who was the one that asked for this kind of monoslope roof, looked at it and said, it adds 10% to the cost, so that bumps it up to $45,980. And Kyle looked at it and said, if you lived in the community, would you really want something like that facing your house? He said, maybe we just go with the regular truss roof with the,
Gable end.
well, it would still be the end where you'd have the runoff on the north side, but he said if we do eaves, or if we do the gutters, there, that's what I was looking for. I just couldn't get into the gutter. If we did the gutters and made sure that the water was directed away from the north side, he said maybe we wouldn't have the ice dams that, like, he mentioned Menards and Winona. Their loading dock faces the north, and he said it's just, if you try to get stuff in the winter, it's not fun.
Were we using that extra truss space for storage, or was that just still gonna be empty space?
That's just empty.
Well, I was asking, cause you're gonna have a crawl space there. I mean, you put a piece of plywood down there, you could stand up at that peak. I'm
Depends
just
if you-
asking, I'm not,
Well, you could do that with the regular.
you could in the peak, I'm just asking,
No.
cause that's some, by design.
It'd cost more to put that in because you don't
I
have
was just asking.
the scissor rafters.
What about, rain, go away, what about a heavy wet snow on a regular truss? Wouldn't you just get dumped on
Yes.
snow on the north side off the roof?
Yep.
And that is a concern, right?
Right, and so that's why we asked for this type of monoslope but.
So I'm not sure what you're recommending, cause I'm hearing it's an eyesore and I'm hearing it has advantages.
It definitely, we wouldn't have asked for it if it didn't have advantages. But there's the advantage of having this monoslope roof, but there's also that we have to build something and not upset the surrounding homeowners.
Has Tom or Gary heard this approach yet? Has it been to a facilities meeting yet?
No, it has not gone to facilities because this is one where, they said if we're going to build the garage, this needs to be a board decision.
So, okay, so we're gonna bump this, or this does not have to be decided tonight.
No, this is a discussion and for the board to start really thinking about
Okay.
what is important, which style you really want to go with, and then we have to get a building permit and, we need to, this does have metal siding, and so we have a building, code in town that, does not allow for metal siding, and so we have to actually look at that too and see if there's, we would either request a variance, and I would have to recuse myself from that meeting. Right now, with the tenet of that committee, I'm not even sure we would get a building permit for the metal siding going this way. They would have to hang the metal siding so it looked like, it looked more like regular siding than the this way. So I have to ask about that.
And the city's approved that before?
The city would approve that, yes.
Interesting.
So our garage is not as big as that picture, right? That's just to show us the.
Oh, yeah, these are,
Okay,
these,
now, I'm just clear, just like,
No.
did I miss something on the size of the
No,
garage?
no,
We do get the
these-
round bales too.
Oh, good.
Included.
120, 28 by,
these are just pictures that he had of
Okay.
other structures
Got it.
they have built with the monoslope roof. Once again, ours would be 60 feet long and 26 feet wide. It would have 4 stalls, 4 self-contained stalls so that we would have walls in between. So if we wanted to have like the drama club storage, they would be in one of the bays and nothing else from the other bays could get in there, which would keep their supplies safe.
You know,
That-
it's
yes.
hard to look at a building like that and
It looks like,
imagine how a smaller one would look. You know, it might not be that bad with that
Okay.
slope on a
You know what I
smaller
see?
building.
I see we could paint a Houston Hurricane pennant mural on that corner of the roof.
At least people know who it
Home of
belongs
the-
to then.
That's
What?
right, red and
People
white.
know who it belongs to.
Well, I
And
would
then-
say,
Oh, the other question, because Kyle asked about turning it, so instead of going parallel to Elm, he said, why can't it just go perpendicular to Elm? With the Army Corps of Engineers marking off what is considered flood zone, we don't have enough depth on that section to go 60 feet without hitting what has been now deemed flood zone. Even though we've got the dike, there are still areas of the town that have been deemed flood zone.
How close to the road can it be?
The stakes, how close to the road, setback without a variance is 30 feet.
And then we don't have another 60 feet there, is that what you're saying?
Well, with we have from the curb to those stakes, we have 58 feet from the curb to the stake.
Could we request an adjustment from the Corps?
Chris Peterson was like, for the DNR, we can build up, there's the DNR map and the Army Corps map, and with DNR, we can build up, or am I confusing the two of them? Anyway, on one of the maps, they've got low areas where we have to build above a certain amount, so we'll have to bring in fill of about a foot to get it up to the right level. But then there's that other line where they just said that's a no-build zone at all. And so we've got 56 feet,
Well,
or 58 feet to get to the no-build zone.
if I recall, it seems like if you could find another place that they could use as ponding area or whatever they call that,
then you
that
could get
you could exchange it.
Okay,
It's
It's
worth
worth looking
talking
at.
to them.
yep.
I feel like the no steel siding is quite an obstacle since Lester buildings are steel. Does Lester put up going horizontal and not vertical?
I don't know, that's why I've got an email into them.
And I understand the city's concerns, they don't want people popping up pole sheds for garages. So,
That's
I mean,
exactly why the ordinance is there.
they're okay with the metal roof, those have now become acceptable, right?
Right,
They're just worried about the siding.
right, they do.
So,
And there's
Okay.
someone right now that has a request to kind of put up something that would look similar to a pole shed, and that's not going through, so that's
so
why.
we can't, yeah, even if they were to go in our favor, we're not. Well, that's
what are we going to do in front of the building to the street?
Oh, we have to knock the curb out, and the curb will turn into a driveway.
But what's gonna be surface on it?
The driveway, concrete.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, you want to, even if, especially if you go with the flatter roof, normal pitch, or whatever you wanna call it, instead of the modified pitch, you'd want concrete so you can push the snow off of it.
Oh. Yeah, definitely.
so,
If we could, excuse me,
yeah, sorry.
if we could get it switched. You know, if we could, it seems to be more economical to put an apron and down onto the street that we already have without having to remove a bunch of curb.
Yes. Yes. It's, the whole reason that we went parallel was because of the lines that Chris said, and Chris said you cannot go inside these. So that's why that facilities, we,
Well, I think that we should look into a little bit before we just give it up.
okay,
Yeah, my concerns would be, we've talked before when we redid the elementary school to being sensitive to the style and the branding and the uniformity of district buildings, so I think we need to be sensitive to that. And and to the community and safety. So I think whether it's an ice, whatever, the ice things that are there or snow falling, I think those are the two things that are of concern to me.
I think it's gonna have to be rebitted with a completely different,
Yeah.
because this is overlapping steel siding, so you're gonna have, I would be curious what the Leicester rep says, but I think it's gonna be
yeah, but the picture you're seeing are just pictures of that roof line. It's not the picture of the garage that we would get.
I'm just saying, but this bid is gonna have to be completely revisited once you have a wood or a masonite sided, or
We can do the metal siding as long as it is not
Vertical, horizontal.
vertical. It's gotta go.
that's what
vertical.
I'm curious if Leicester will accept that, because it's built by design for weather protection
To be
and
that way.
to be vertical, because it overlaps, or else you'd have a metal edge. Like if you ran your hand down this way, they're in 3-foot lengths. So I'm just curious on what the, if you want to go to bat with the city, that's one thing, and the other thing is to go conform to the code and have it rebid with a acceptable siding, be it OSB and vinyl, masonite. I mean, personally, that vinyl is not the easiest to maintain either. We've seen that with the existing garage, so
Yeah,
I'm just saying there's a lot more at play here. Anyway.
but I
A little more work on it.
was asked to get the different roof lines, so that's
What you did.
what I did. I will
So
go back.
I know that this is important and a whole board decision, but should it be run by facilities, or are we gonna deal with it from here on out at full board? Because I value facilities committee members and neither one of them is here tonight.
Right.
So,
Facility could have a meeting prior to our next board meeting. That would be May 3rd.
we'll at least bring them up
Well,
to
for
speed
sure.
on this.
Especially now that we have all kinds of options that we're thinking about.
We muddy the pot.
And they have experience. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, Gary really dug into the last unit that was looked at behind the preschool, so, he had put in a lot of time on that. But, personally, as far as the roof line, I don't see it as an eyesore. That's just me.
Well,
But we need
it's hard to look at this big old thing here.
Yeah, if it was more at scale, to the size that we're looking at.
Yeah.
I wonder, we've gotta have some
It
sort of
seems to
way
me
they
there's
can.
one in
Yeah.
town here already someplace, isn't there? One with that kind of a roof line.
To drive around.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drive around again, cause I was sure I saw one someplace.
Especially if it's safer for, ice and,
Yeah.
yeah, that's real important.
Yeah, the ice part, because I know how it comes off the snows, storage shed and by the dental office.
Yeah, that's-
And,
That's
it's
nasty.
dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. And that's a south facing.
Yeah, and it comes off in one big swoop.
Let's do it south. Both.
Yeah, it comes off.
Yeah.
It comes
Oh,
off the
so I
south
got-
sooner
I got
than the
storage shed on
north.
the
Doesn't
other
make
side.
any difference
Okay.
if it's in the sun or not, because as soon as the inside of it heats up, the roof.
We
It
want
just-
the second
it
one
just
from the
runs
left.
Oof.
And
The second
Let's
one
pick
from the
that
left.
one. I
Yeah,
like that.
That's a nice one. No, from the left. There, that one.
Oh, look at there. I like the car too. Can we get that?
Where are you finding these?
Google, you gotta
Google,
love
we
it.
just
Just
No,
have
they're
to-
just Googling.
Images, yeah.
Oh, look at this, we got all kinds of.
really dark to see.
There, I like that one.
This is-
The one that's third from the right.
And you
Get
know,
on that, Ann.
I
Find us a-
I wasn't voicing my opinion and negativity on this. I feel bad that you have to go back. You're back, you know, be backpedaling on that siding. Anyway,
Somebody's really not
Well, the
noticed.
siding, that's just the way it's supposed to be, so. That's,
Well, Lester should know what the city will require, don't they? Or not?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's,
They put in the,
they draw it and then you submit a building permit and then the city looks at it and if it's not according to ordinances, the city has the right to deny the building permit.
and that is their expertise. So I mean, if you needed that out
in
of
North
town,
40.
they will put that up in no time. Yeah.
so, a little more work, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay, B, staffing for speech language pathologist.
We got the contract for continuing our contract with Speech Partners, which is the teletherapy and Shannon does a great job. But I know that when we staff that way, we couldn't find, the reason we went with Speech Partners originally is we could not find a speech pathologist, but now there are different speech pathologists that are asking about jobs here in Houston. So we think we do have the capability of getting somebody here that's live. That would be better for us for several reasons. One, the teletherapy just does the articulation, not the language and socialization components. Right now, those are done by Jackie Timish. And Jackie, who has retired once, now is back and was willing to come back at 0.4 and then was willing to go to 0.6 and has been willing now to go to 0.8. Would really like to maybe go back to 0.7 next year. And so she's doing all the language socialization. And so if we had somebody in-house that could do the artic and the language socialization component, that would really help. And we also, because we have it online, have to have a para in the classroom too, helping with the computer. So that would, it would significantly reduce our costs by having a full-time speech language person. Now, granted, someone would have to apply, but I didn't want to post for a speech language person and have the board wonder why we're posting for a position without it having come here.
when does our contract with Speech Partners renew?
I've got the contract right now. I would have to renew this summer if we wanted to keep it up again. So that,
there is time to.
there is time.
Post and see if there's.
Yes, but when I saw how much we were paying for Speech Partners, I thought we could. And that's just for the one person doing the artic, not the other components. And I thought for what we're paying here, we could get somebody we could hire someone with a master's and 16 years of experience and almost pay exactly the same amount that we're paying
And this
for just
person
the teletherapy.
would cover MNBA services as well? Speech services for MNBA students or just local students?
This is just local. Speech Partners just does local.
Who does the speech for our MNBA?
Ann Loudon is our speech language person
We have
online.
a-
Yep,
Okay,
and she does all the MNVA speech language.
okay,
And
I
she's
just don't
on-
know how many we have in the district. Personally, I think it would be much better to have a real person in real contact with our real students, so I'm not opposed to it.
Okay,
I'm just speaking for
Anybody
myself.
else? So you just need a consensus that she's.
But
gonna
just,
do
I
this
just
stuff,
wanted you aware that was happening. I didn't want
Okay.
you to question why we were putting on.
No, the only thing that I would like it to be clear is if we're posting for a position that it would be contingent on not renewing the contract with Speech Partners,
Right.
so that we're not locked into both
Right.
somehow.
Okay,
No, because that would not be a savings.
Right, but it's just a question. I shouldn't-
Was Mrs. Spurbeck our last in-house?
Mhm.
So, I've
And we
had-
did have Ann Loudon for a short time too, the MNBA one.
Okay.
And Shannon's amazing, but
She, the person we have from Speech Partners is Shannon, and she is very, very good.
I was gonna second that. I've had children in both when Mrs. Spurbeck was here and through Skype or through, and it's both are a success.
Good. That's nice to hear.
But I agree with you, if we can have someone in-house and face-to-face.
I mean, a quality qualified person.
I think my one daughter continued to mess up her S's just to go beat with Mrs. Spurbeck. We could put her on trial, but.
okay.
Thank you.
Old business, reorganization of MNBA advisor office.
We discussed that on the online quite a bit, and that's taken the 7 advisors and going down to 4 advisors, and then getting a dean of students and a social worker for the same money. And we looked at the job descriptions, and they seem to be covered with everyone. That's what we were concerned.
Okay, so you guys, you did look into the job descriptions?
Yes.
Because I have questions on the job descriptions that were posted.
Okay.
I had some questions on some of the wording and just was wondering.
Well, they do have a different wording. One might have said one, then it might have been.
Because what we've been fleshing out the wording and the actual like job posting that's going out. It's the committee saw the bullets and
Okay,
not this document. So I wanted to clarify that with Jean as well. Okay, and your questions?
so which one are we on? Social worker. So, so for both of these positions, looks like the required, can you scroll down a little bit, Ann? There. Required qualifications are a degree, a minimum of a bachelor's, and licensed. And both positions have that. And then at the bottom of it, we're saying these are hired as at will.
Oh, no, that should have been taken off. I'm sorry.
The at will,
Yep.
because they're licensed. I didn't know how, that didn't jive to me. Something didn't fit.
Yep. Well, they're licensed, and the contract we're following the old Dean of Students contract that we had before. And that Dean of Students contract, it requires the license, but the contract says at will on it. But they're hired for the year.
So my question is, in terms of when we're with the license, can we do that? Because every licensed position we have in this district it's like they're, except for you are the at-will person, pretty much, with a license. Every other license in the district is under some sort of contract that.
Well, Deb Jurgensen as a nurse is on the professional, and that's,
Okay, well, all right, so that's the only one, that's one. But with a teaching license or with an education license, I just wondered has this been run by the union, or is there any concerns there with?
The social worker would be on the teacher contract.
And so how can we make,
Because the social worker at will just means that there's not seniority or tenure.
it also means there's not a continuing contract, or there is a continuing contract, or, I mean, I'm confused by this, so I guess I have questions about it.
With the former dean of students, from the research I have done on the contracts,
At will was, they were hired each year, and so it was a contract that was renewed each year. For
So
just that they were hired for that year. If they did a good job, they knew that there would be the possibility of having the job next year.
So is that put not in the job description, but in the contract that they're offered?
Yes.
Okay. That's, I'm looking for clarification there. And then under the recommended, I think it was recommended desired qualifications, or maybe no, maybe it's under the top one.
Desired.
Okay, no, it's under the required. What does this mean? Proficiency in office products and web proficiency. That's pretty vague to me. I don't. So these positions are hired for MNVA, so I would think their ability in an online environment is kind of critical.
Yes.
So I don't know how to state that more
Well, and that's
clearly.
what is meant by the web proficiency. And Angela, we used part of what K-12 has as their qualifications for the social work position is one that comes from it's called their FAST team. And so some of this she gleaned from, as Angela was putting this together, some of the qualifications she took off the MNVA HR job requirement page. And so that's the way they wrote it.
Okay.
I guess it is up to the discretion of you taking their word. If you say, are you comfortable in Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and then web proficiency, I mean, are you computer literate? I mean, you're right. I mean, you could almost have some people will get, do you get certified in that or get do you get some kind of certification that you took like an Excel class or PowerPoint?
Oh, they do have those. You can be certified in Office
Microsoft
products.
has,
Yes.
Microsoft Office has
Right,
certification.
but that's not anything that
But
we
we
would
don't require
require this person to have. That's not,
Well,
No, but
you're
in
saying
that they're
proficiency.
delivering their services in an online environment, I don't know what needs to be stated there or what in your interview process is looking for somebody that has, is comfortable in an
the
online
interview process, that both of these people would not need to be comfortable in Skype, in instant messaging, in Blackboard or Illuminate or any of the D2L, those types of, and those would all be in the interview questions, because we can't get somebody that's not able and comfortable in that environment, because that's the environment that this position is going to be living in.
I understand, but it feels like sometimes we've hired online teachers who have never taught in an online environment, maybe years past when there wasn't, and you're throwing people in because they can teach and they know the subject, but their classroom environment, their work environment is a learning curve.
I'm not sure we will be able to find, if one of the qualifications is that it's a social worker who has been a social worker in an online school. I don't think
I'm
that.
not asking that be
Okay.
that, I'm just asking for what does web proficiency mean? I mean, I can type www dot, and that doesn't mean I'm proficient in web, in the use of those tools. And I'm not asking you to change it, I'm asking to understand what are you gonna be looking for?
We're going to
And-
look for somebody who is very comfortable in Skype, very comfortable in, yes, yeah.
Okay, and so I think it was more on, so this is the social work one, I had fewer questions on that one. On the Dean of Students one,
Okay.
I'm sorry to be doing this.
That's all right.
It says somewhere in there, minimum of 3 years experience, quote, in education. That's pretty broad. It's under the required certification, minimum 3 years experience in education. As a dean of students,
Yeah, that's required. Desired is 5 or more years. So,
What is that, but at what level? I mean, you can
well,
work
for
in,
the dean of students, you could have somebody that is just starting to get a principal's license. A dean of students does not have a principal's license, does not have to have, could have, but it is not something that a dean of students is not required to have. And there are some people that have started in education and they knew from their get-go that what they wanted to do more than anything was to move into administration. That's
okay.
one of my
I
classmates
just didn't
from
know whether
college
it was like experience in the roles of X, Y, or Z to eliminate things like having hung around a school for many years and
Oh.
you got a license, but you never really taught, but you worked in the,
Well, if you've got the bachelor or master's in education, you're not gonna get somebody that applies for this that has not been a teacher. Or if they haven't been a teacher, if they're a counselor, there's all kinds of other hoops they have to jump through in order to get that. You have some counselors that would want to do the dean of students because for them to get the licensure to be the principal without having had taught, they need to put in, 1,020 hours
okay.
of different interning. And so,
Then my last question is under, I think this is for the dean, the job description is pretty much listed as dealing with at-risk students, and I'm wondering if the dean of students could be support to all of our online students. Why are, I understand the social worker being restricted to students who are at risk or failing, but the dean of students being a liaison between student teachers and academic personnel, seems to me we shouldn't restrict that to support for students at risk of failing due to academic struggles.
the reason for this is that is the area that needs the focus, and that's the area that's not really being addressed in an effective manner by the advisors. So
Okay.
that's the whole purpose of this, is to try to get that engagement piece going. So it is a dean of students who really is going to be focusing on special ed students, making sure that the IEPs are appropriate and really are addressing that engagement factor, and dealing with the other kids who are not logging on, and working really hand in hand with the social worker on those that are having the issues with truancy. So
And so what
it
if
is-
a student who's doing fine but has some personal issue come up, the family comes up, and they contact the dean of students, and the dean of students says, not my job?
No,
Because
the
it's
dean
not-
of students would say, if you're having a
But if they're
personal
being-
issue,
Oh, any kind
Here's-
of personal issue.
right, we have a social worker. Because the social worker doesn't have to just deal with, and granted, most of what the social worker will be doing is working with the non-engaged or the students that are having difficulties. But that could be, we've got students that are claiming anxiety, and the reason
Tell
that,
me about it.
that's why they can't do some assignments. They are anxious, and they are, they're nervous about, we had one that was nervous about taking photos where anyone might be able to tell where the photo was taken. And so that would have been a great time to call the social worker in
Okay.
and have the social worker deal
Well,
with that
if
student.
you're comfortable with this, I'm not you, I'm just saying, I think you're tying your hands a little too much. I think it should be a little broader to give you some latitude in finding the right, where the dean of students is needed. I mean, you know that this is an identified thing, but, you know, it could push the fluffy edges of that, and then what? I just, that's all my concern is, but if you're okay with it, that's fine. You're the one who's living with it, so.
And we know that this is really where we need to shore up the safety net for our kids.
Thank you.
No one has made a motion.
We did
Do we
it
need a
backwards
motion?
as we usually do.
Yeah, this is old business, so it needs to be approved tonight. Or
I'll make the motion to accept the reorganization.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second, any further discussion?
Have the advisors who are being affected all been notified of this
they
change?
were notified before it went to,
Okay.
they were notified of the possibility before it even went to the online schools committee. We just felt that that was the right thing to do.
Okay, and then they will be finishing up at the end of this school year or
June
Okay.
30th.
And so if we approve this, you will go ahead and post for these positions, is that
Correct.
what we're, okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Policies for second reading.
See,
Motion to approve the policies.
second.
Motion and second, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. New business? No new business? Nope. Announcements? Important detail.
District Tech Advisory Committee, we will be having one. I'll get the agenda out tomorrow. It will be for the 26th at 3:30. The survey results came back, and in looking at them, I asked the principals for their input, and the principals thought that it might be wise to disaggregate the survey results by what the on-site teachers felt was necessary for their training and what the online teachers felt was necessary for their training. And so I am in the process of disaggregating them, but the way the survey was set up and the way this data downloads, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not just a simple sort. So I will get that done by tomorrow and get that out so that the committee members can have all the survey results and then the disaggregated survey results tomorrow. So we will have that to discuss.
Okay. Any updates on
Oh, visit to the Capitol, I did get a thank you from Representative Greg Davids. We talked to him for a bit. Hopefully we got through there's a lot, even though this is not a funding year, there's a lot of different bills that are going through that could have a definite impact on how we do things and the funding that we get. One of those being how TRA is funded, because right now it is underfunded. We know it's been underfunded for years. They have kicked the can down the road. It is underfunded because of decisions made by the legislature. And so our stance has always been, if it needs to be funded, you can't put the funding on the school districts without giving the school districts extra money for that. And so right now the bill is for the funding to increase over the next 6 years, but then they will provide the extra increase to the school districts, so it's not coming out of the general fund. That one's major that it gets done this time, because if they kick the can down to next year when it is a funding year, when they put the extra money on to adequately fund TRA, they will use it as part of the education funding overall costs, and they'll say, well, you gave you this new money, which is basically paying for their funded mandate.
So you got any feelings on how it's going?
They're not gonna wanna pay for TRA, it's gonna be left to the schools to find a way to do it.
Well,
They're not gonna get, I mean, that's right,
they're going to give dollar amounts though, because the legislature voted and passed a bill for TRA. They made TRA take the Duluth Teacher Union and the Minneapolis Teacher Union, which were both underfunded really bad.
Though they tanked.
And they made them join together in one,
I know, but
and therefore they got funded.
they're just gonna keep kicking that
Right.
can down the road.
They have known that it's been underfunded for almost 5 years,
Yeah.
and they have kicked the can down the road every year to the point where now it's a sizable chunk of change to fund it correctly. They really are listening to Education Minnesota lobby. The teachers are not going to have to increase their contribution. I think in 5 years, the teacher's contribution will have to be increased by 0.25%. But it's just, that one I'm watching, then there's all kinds of language that's just going through that as far as safety and security, and some of it's very good, and others would tie our hands to the point where we would not be able to get our job done. One is to allow parents to opt out of any school software. Well, Infinite Campus is school software. I said we can't allow parents to just opt out of Infinite Campus. The way it's written right now.
Well, wouldn't that just require us to do paper mailings of things instead of them logging into portals?
No, and the way it's written, the student would not be allowed to be put into the software at all.
Well, that
And
that
that's
has
why,
legs
yes,
in 2018?
Why wouldn't you want it? I love it.
Well, I mean, in this day and age, I can't
Be-
imagine that.
they're worried about the safety and someone else getting to the data.
To
And
the mailing list?
Well, to
No.
all sorts of private data.
also, it's
yeah.
they don't want their,
Any of their personal private data loaded anywhere.
right,
And MBA just had a Minnesota Virtue Academy, not Minnesota Virtue Academy,
MSBA.
the
got their
Minnesota
webinar
State
on
School Board
safety.
had a webinar on safety in terms of
Yeah.
even getting additional insurance just for that, if
Yeah.
they got in or the information got out.
no, but it's just, and that's the other thing, is the way it's worded right now. The Senate has one, and in the Senate bill, that one makes sense as far as the cybersecurity. The House bill, they wrote it without consideration of so many things that the House bill would tie our hands to the point where we couldn't function. Okay. Gina, do you want to say anything about the online schools committee?
Well, basically, I mean, we went through the positions there, reducing the staff and everything else, and then enrollment doesn't look too bad yet, things like that. So you said in your letter that you send out as well, most of the information.
Do you have anything to share on that meeting you had last week, the partnerships meeting?
Well, it looks good. We're gonna meet again. It's one way that we're going to get into the businesses. If we're gonna have to get the businesses there, we're gonna have to do a lot of work.
So you had a presentation by a chamber person who was just talking about
She,
promoting,
yeah,
No,
they,
what she did in Winona.
oh,
They got a lot of really good communication with their chamber. And funding, she's got a lot of funding for it too. The funding ideas.
So I got an email from Courtney Berge, there's gonna be a meeting on May 9th, a lunch
Yes.
meeting.
And that's hopefully to get the businesses there,
Yeah,
because
but
what.
she wants some,
Mhm.
right, so,
And that'll be in Caledonia. But one thing, she had a magazine that they put out, a brochure, and it had all the businesses like in the community. You could go each place, how many workers they have, you know, and things like that, and go through it. She's done that for the health field and the industry. We could have one for the agriculture, like, very easy in this area.
Well done.
Or you could have an agriculture community one with the elevator and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Did we have the update on the marketing meeting? No. When did we have the marketing? Did you get the update on the marketing meeting? Or the,
I'm not on marketing, it's
I did.
Josh and
okay,
Amy.
That was a couple weeks ago.
And that was
missed
right
it.
before the last board meeting.
it was right before the
Yes,
last.
it was at 5 o'clock, I was not
Okay,
there.
okay, so we got the update of marketing on the last one. I just wanted it, I read the minutes, so I wanted to make sure that we'd gone through
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Tom did recap that.
Tom did, okay, good.
Okay, anything else?
The fun part, we've gotten to congratulate kids on, great events, and we have another great event. And, Lily Carlson made it to state in speech and extemporaneous reading. She and her coach will be leaving after school tomorrow, and they will be competing, or Lily will be competing up in, Apple Valley. Yes,
Nice.
yes, so,
I think they're gonna have an escort out of town.
They are
yes,
3:30, if you'd like to wave, you know.
okay. So that's. Cause we haven't had anyone up at state speech since 2014, when our current coach was
Oh.
the person at state speech.
Interesting how that coincides with how dance worked out too.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, can I back up to a previous?
Back up.
So the marketing thing, because I didn't remember the update on that, and now I do. I'm looking at the minutes.
Okay.
And I do remember now. But I guess I should forward that to the marketing group. But I went home and thought about that a lot, about how to increase advertisement of our district. I'm wondering if we want to increase advertising or if we want to improve our brand presence. It's not different, but it is different.
Randy.
I don't know, I would like the marketing group to talk about that, because I definitely think we need to build our brand and
Polish us up before we.
polish it up, but I don't think I personally am wondering if we really want to be trying to go out and market in outside of our borders. We don't have the funds to do that, really, and, you know, what's our goal? So I guess what's the goal of advertising? Or is it
And
brand?
that would be a good question to ask the board, and a good question to get a consensus on an answer.
That
Do you
was
think?
that
I
was
mean-
that was debated when we
Okay.
had our was it leadership training or what was it?
The strategic,
Strategic plan.
Yeah, and I just felt like what the update that I'm remembering now sounded much more like we were gonna go more assertively into
It's
marketing.
that's a great
And I-
point, because the definition of marketing is to get more, to attain more of
clients. to
Right.
get more.
It's a very good point, and then you're saying, yeah,
I'm
what's
saying
our
let's do it
capacity that we're
professionally
aiming for?
and build it and let them come. Don't go kidnap them.
By the busload.
By the busload.
But that should probably be a future agenda item as far as a discussion item on the.
Well, it's for, I suppose the marketing group should toss that around but it should be a full board thing, but
The marketing group, when they tossed it around,
came up with the advertising.
yeah.
Well,
And
see,
so
and
that's-
I'm like, then I would like to have the whole board discuss
Okay,
it and make
yep.
sure that that's where
I
everybody's.
guess I'd like to, know the difference between branding and advertising exactly.
Well,
May I?
Yeah,
Try it,
yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, I know what, I
Yeah.
mean, but go ahead, I'll see if I agree with you.
Oh, I just put myself on the hot seat. Okay.
No, you didn't.
With branding, that is packaging your organization in such a way that when people hear it, they know what that means. They know what that organization is about. And if they see, like our hurricane logo or something else, they know that's Houston Public Schools, that's a quality organization, they
valuable brand.
provide a great education, they really are supportive of their students and the community. That's their brand. Advertising is doing the slick, glossy, and I'm giving you a bias, I'm sorry. Okay, advertising is producing a message and mailing it or somehow disseminating it out to a wide area to basically say, you want to come here, you want to buy what we're giving. You know, you're probably not happy with your own school, come to our school because it's so much better.
I've had a couple of community members mention that some flashy signage in some neighboring communities is quite distasteful to them.
We talked
Oh,
about
like
the,
the 16th best school in the state, that one?
I'm just saying, that's
Okay.
what you're saying is flashy, and I thought that's the way it sounded like with marketing we wanted to go, and I'm saying, I've had some feedback, and I'm not sure I wanna go that way, I just maybe wanna have a discussion, if that's what we wanna do, then I'm in, but.
The one thing I did resubmit a letter that was submitted to a Centec in 2008. Since I originally wrote the letter, I felt I could delete the sincerely from line and put my own name in, and then resubmitted it, asking for the school public access channel.
I mean,
Yeah,
And so,
that's just that's a service to our community that I think we should be providing if we can.
and I would love to have kids producing things to put on that channel and to put some of these great things that are happening. So if people really wanted to know what was going on in the school, they could go to our channel, if they have a Centec.
It sounded like you got
TV.
positive feedback. The person currently in that position liked the idea and thought, why haven't we done that earlier? Does that sound right?
No, the committee, the marketing committee talked about this.
Oh.
Oh, as far
No,
as.
you talked to the Centec.
I talked to a Centec and said, what would it take to get one? And they said, you have to submit a letter, and I said, we did in 2008. And they said, well, you have to submit it again, because no one remembers that. And I said, okay, fine, can I just resubmit the exact same letter? And they said, put your own name on it, and I said, okay. So that's
where you're at on that?
that's where I have submitted the letter is going to the board. ACE has its annual meeting, or Centec has its annual meeting this Saturday. I don't know if the board acts or has a meeting prior to that or after it, when the new
That is
board
their
is.
meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is their annual meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know if this is on, they
Probably
said
not, it's their
that,
business meeting.
I don't think it's the board's meeting, it's just the, it's the
annual meeting.
It's the annual meeting of the,
The whole,
yes, of the co-op.
My Energy has theirs tonight, because they got postponed last night.
That's
Oh,
right.
really?
Yeah. they
Was
were
there a
supposed-
snow event?
I guess so.
So,
In terms of like advertising, we did say, like with Fillmore Journal, we do once a month. Is it once a month or once a quarter? Get that page in?
It's, I think once a
if
month.
other places.
And they
do
ask
it,
Once a month.
access
And somebody
to,
did
why do we not?
Come to me from
That's
Rushford,
Because
in
they,
the-
no
I
one
was at,
saw the letter,
Lions
no one
meeting,
had asked
and he
them to
mentioned to
follow
me
up on it,
that,
and none of us
your
followed
school
up
is
on
very
it.
highly ranked, I see in
There
the
you go.
Fillmore Journal.
And it seemed.
I had to go
doable
back and
from-
look at
I'm
the
reading-
article where you read
I'm
that.
reading Chris writing there.
It was in this article.
Well, I think Kurt's on it, so.
What?
I say, if everybody else has a public access channel and we don't, it doesn't seem like we.
Lanesboro does not either.
Okay.
But we just happen to have a Centec in our community, so that's a very valid question. And they're obviously gonna address that, and it'll be, I wonder, they're gonna have to look at the cost and,
Well, Crescent has two. They,
One is the
One is
school
the
and one
schools
is the
and
cities.
the community.
Caledonia has two, one is the schools, one is the cities.
And did they pay extra for these?
No. It's,
Well,
if,
that's
if,
a no-brainer.
But you have to have somebody on this end be coordinating what
Right.
goes on there.
and how to put it on.
And how to put it on, I mean, so
But I
it's,
would agree with you that, I mean, if we had it, it would be a great event for kids to do
they
something.
would tell by.
but it, I mean, it is more work for somebody.
Okay,
Of course.
there's, to televise games, that would take wiring on our end. And it would take acquisition, that would be an expense for us, not for Centec, but that would be an expense for us to have the correct equipment
It'd be
to
later.
interface with that. If that is something that as a board you want to go for and fund, we can definitely discuss it, but we can't even discuss it until we get the channel first.
Right.
Rushford has that. They got the wiring done now at the end of the basketball year, but they do have the capability now to televise once again from their gym. And Rushford's setup is a little different in that the school and community share their public access channel. So it's a joint channel between the two. But that's not how the city wanted theirs set up. And every city is different.
So it'll be a possibility once the channel's in place.
And-
And incorporate the
First
students.
they have to agree to give us the channel.
Right.
But I wanted to let you know where that stood.
Is that it?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
That's all, folks.
Move to adjourn.
Is Dean?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It was cool to see Channel 19 at the school on Tuesday.
That was neat.
Turn on the news and
Yep.
see all those.
Thank you.
There's my kid.
See those kids jumping up.
Yeah?
What about going with Ripple Brothers? Is that a thought or is that a?
Rickle Brothers was way more expensive.
Oh, okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
they're the ones that built our shop.